Today's episode of Northern Lights is presented by North Star Law Group, your trusted partner in Minnesota's burgeoning legal cannabis industry. Whether you're just starting out or looking to expand, attorney Jen Riza and her team will help you understand the latest developments, scope out risks, and find a compliant path forward in this rapidly changing field. Visit northstarlaw.com and let North Star Law Group guide you through the legal landscape with confidence.
And we're back. Welcome, everyone. Episode 17 of the Northern Lights podcast. I'm here with my co-hosts today, John and Marcus. Welcome, guys.
Welcome. How are you?
Thank you.
Doing well.
Nice.
Another day back in the studio.
Another day, another dollar.
Oh, yeah. Really happy about today. We got some big news that we're going to be covering today that's happening here in Minnesota. We've got a great interview coming a little bit later in this episode with Stefen Cornell of Cornell Urban Agriculture. We've got some really good stuff coming up. And at the end, we're going to talk about an ongoing growth series that if you're listening to this podcast on the 15th, it starts today. So you can go and check that out. But we'll be talking more about that at the end. But yeah, how have you guys been?
Been doing well. Came into the new year feeling very sick. I had COVID, but doing a lot better now. What are you, Marcus?
COVID-19.
COVID-24, apparently.
Right. I'm alive and well. I'm happy to be alive. Happy to be here.
Hell yeah.
Well, we're happy that you're here. We're happy that we're able to connect with you today. We've got some big news, though, that we're covering that unfortunately is on that health side, and it's maybe a little less of a positive news for some people here.
Seems to be on the health and criminal justice side.
Yeah. So here, I'll fill them in, and then we'll chat about everything going on. So as people probably know, there has been cannabis flower being sold in Minnesota for quite a long time. I know, shocking. Going back a couple of years, we saw flower rich in CBD being sold sort of for the first time legally here in Minnesota under that hemp program. And then there was sort of this shift where that CBD flower maybe also had Delta-8 covering it, and that was being sold in stores, and then they nixed that, said definitely can't do that. But sort of the new thing, I say new in air quotes, that has been happening is people selling what's called THC-A rich flower. It is not in of itself psychoactive, but when heated, when decarboxylated, it shifts and it becomes more psychoactive. So even if a flower is rich in THC-A, is not, maybe technically THC, very quickly becomes THC when heated.
Yep. And it's kind of I would say one of the biggest loopholes in our enforcement is that we allow this raw flower, but nobody can enforce what this raw flower is, even though we do have laws surrounding, like in Minnesota, we're a total THC state. So like the total THC needs to be under 0.3, but like Tanner said, it can be super high in THC-A, which the moment it gets lit, it's just THC. So
And you're lit.
we've made ourselves a very interesting problem.
Yeah, I walked into a store the other day that I don't want to put the name out there of, but they were selling like eighths of THC-A flower and saying, it's basically just cannabis. Go home and smoke it. And
this became a problem after legalization, but like it was THC-A flower has been being sold here for years now. Just like after legalization, it became the loophole of how you can just sell straight up flower in your store.
And let's sort of explain the argument that people make when saying that this is legal, just so that the rest of the episode we can sort of talk about why it's wrong. Yeah. Some people say, well, the definition of cannabis is based on THC. So, if the percentage of THC is below 0.3%, then it's hemp. Even if the percentage of THC-A is way above that. The argument is that because some interpret federal law to be really strict around just that one form of THC, that this is legal flower. If you ask most people that understand the law here in Minnesota, though, we're regulated on a total THC state. So it can't be sold as like an edible product.
Only in the raw flower form. And it's one of those problems where I think it comes a lot from like misunderstanding of like what is the purpose? What is the actual purpose of like limiting total THC versus like what is happening. And I feel like because we didn't make that connection last session, we kind of kicked the can.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll figure it out next year. And here we are, 2024.
Yeah.
Still not figured.
Yeah.
And I suspect a lot of that stuff that was in the stores was just legacy market cannabis that they're labeling as THC.
So I actually have a story about that. Last May, so this is before August 1st, there were 2 different shops who were selling hemp flower that's another farmer, or he owns a retail shop, but he's also a hemp farmer, took some of those products, went and tested them, and it was just cannabis flower. So, like, this has
From
been
California.
a problem. Yeah. This has been an issue. So it's interesting to see that the state's catching up now.
Yeah, so let's talk about sort of what's happening. And we should just make clear before we move on. Under Minnesota law, it's not legal to sell THC-rich flower without a license. Unfortunately, I would love to be able to, go knock on my neighbor's door and say, hey, you'll never guess what I just grew. But
You could
not,
give it to him.
You can gift it. Absolutely. Honestly, they would prefer that much more.
Right.
Right.
He
No
can,
cost.
He can pay you to
them.
leave.
Yeah, yeah.
He can pay you in compliments.
But what is happening now is like you said, the state is sort of catching up and trying to say, all right, even if this doesn't fall squarely under that umbrella of the Department of Medical Cannabis, maybe it's not a hemp-derived product, how can regulators, how can law enforcement, how can people deal with the sale of this flower? And it's looking like it's going to be further criminalization.
I'll say the state did kind of shoot itself in the foot, because if we had an OCM director, this is their purview.
Absolutely.
That is how the law is written. The only reason this is an issue now is because the OCM isn't set up with the director. So like nothing, there's no one to make the change.
Yeah.
Even though we have a position. That's
For
like,
sure. The Department of Health was given hemp-derived products, but now we've got all these flower products that are not necessarily hemp-derived that are under the Office of Cannabis Management. But like you said, who's gonna enforce that right now?
But what is this chief regulatory officer doing? He must be doing something.
So I think that's where all of this action is coming out of. So
Okay.
on the 11th, there's going to be a meeting with OCM, with the Office of Medical Cannabis,
chief regulator.
yeah, and with law enforcement throughout the state of Minnesota to really talk about what do regulations around this look like, what is legal here in Minnesota, and then what sort of falls squarely in that illegal category that even though people might be throwing up a flag and saying, hey, this is hemp, this is fine, law enforcement can still come in and say, this is not legally compliant.
Yeah. And clearly,
I'm sorry. No.
I was just going to say, hopefully from this meeting, they clearly define how that's going to be enforced. Not just like, these are the rules. But it's like, this is how the rules are going to be made. Because right now we have rules. So it has to be more than just changing the rules. Because that's not incentivizing.
Is this open to the public? Is this going to be on the internet?
As far as I know, no. I believe this is just sort of a way of them sharing information internally. But
Closed door meeting. private?
don't quote me on that. I don't know that for certain.
Yeah, I'll double check. They might film it, but I'm not sure. I feel like the police, I hate to say it, would not want to be filmed.
Yeah.
I mean, I just saw a video of this Minnesota cop, and he was like vigorously like giving
swabbing
head.
his mouth.
Yeah, he was giving head. Oh my god!
You're doing a new swab technique to make sure you get the shot of your cheek.
I mean, those
for
comments
saliva.
were crazy. Yeah.
It's like a thing that I don't know if a thing that we're not sure the science on it is proven.
No, it's not.
Is what the police are testing
Pseudoscience.
for swabbing your mouth.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
looked like he was
I forgot about that.
throat baby.
Should we throw that video clip in here?
Go ahead and pull that piece out and then scrub it around like a toothbrush on the inside of your cheek.
That's a new drug detecting test.
So I'll put it into the machine.
I think we really
That
should
was-
because
the
it's
comments
a
were
very funny. Like,
crazy,
you're just like, and
Vigorous.
where you think he's gonna stop? He goes harder.
And he was looking you in the eye.
I know who I don't want to get pulled over by that for sure.
Okay, let me spit out. I mean, you gotta
Like, gawk.
All right. Well, so the Mint Post wrote a great article sort of covering what's going to happen with OCM law enforcement. There were a lot of quotes in there, but I want to pull out one specifically from someone we all know. So there was a quote from our friend Layli Fati, the campaign manager for Minnesota is Ready, that said, the entire point of legalizing the damn thing was to bring a vast majority of these issues under administrative fines and penalties rather than criminal ones, especially in a world where there may not be a ton of regulatory guidance, so retailers don't know what they can and can't be selling. Having a cop show up is just not helpful. Couldn't agree with her more. If you're a business owner who's trying in good effort to follow the law, maybe you're someone that's confused about the THC-A. I think it's pretty clear, but maybe you're someone that falls in that area of thinking, maybe not. It should be a regulator coming in to say, hey, the laws were unclear, but this is not legally compliant. We need to help you get in compliance.
Yeah.
Not Sergeant Joe.
Yeah.
Like it's
who, I hate to say it, probably understand the bill even less than the regulator.
absolutely.
So it's like let's move the middleman, and if we're gonna change the rules, reach out to people directly. Do not like sending police to these people, solving zero problems.
Right. This is about legalization, not continuing criminalization.
I'm going to say that. There's a quote by Charlene Bryant here I'm going to read. It says, the legislature was deliberate in giving temporary regulatory authority for hemp-derived cannabinoid products to the Department of Health, Office of Medical Cannabis. During this transition period, in anticipation of the time it would take to build a new agency from the ground up. So that's like a weird quote. But what she's saying is they did this on purpose, which makes me like, it feels like this should have been an August 1st thing then. I feel it's not giving me a lot of hope in like what this OCM is going to be.
I mean, we were all there for the bill drafting process. Honestly, if I were to make a guess, if I were to go back to the legislators' mindset at the time, I have to imagine that they just forgot to include the hemp and before hemp-derived edibles. Yeah. It would seem sort of absurd that there's this flower that's clearly illegal that nobody can regulate. I mean, I do not think it should be law enforcement coming in to do that regulation, but I am curious on who are those regulators that should be providing that guidance.
I think it'll be up to the medical cannabis office / the OCM moving faster, getting their regulations down faster. Because that's right now, I feel like it's a speed thing of where we've moved slower than we anticipated to move because of the whole earlier OCM debacle. So, we'll be looking out. Yeah, I'll be looking out, see what comes out of this.
I think the OCM can redeem itself. I do. It's going to take some time, but I don't think it's going to take forever.
I love the optimism, Marcus.
OCM, I've got
we
faith
need an
in you.
optimist.
I believe you can make it right.
Well, talking about things sort of slowly moving their way through government, there was some news this week that some other work from House File 100 is slowly trickling its way through state government, and that is that expungement process that was so critically built into the legalization bill. If we think back to places like Colorado that legalized cannabis, very neat, did not include a ton of decriminalization provisions written into that bill. What's really important is Minnesota provided a lot of that. There's 66,000 adults that are eligible for automatic expungement, another 230,000 that will be reviewed by that expungement board, and the work has
felonies, right?
slowly started begun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this week it came out that the state has added a notice to all criminal history records that allow reviewers to know that certain cannabis records might be expunged in the future. So if you're someone that has that crime or has that conviction on your record, someone goes to run a criminal background check for you, there's now a little asterisk and a note saying, hey, this likely will be gone very soon. We're just sort of slow moving and rolling this out. What do you guys think about that?
I'm excited.
I mean, it's progress. It's slow as hell.
Yeah.
It's definitely imperfect, but it is progress. I just hope that the vast majority of people who have these felonies, the 230,000 people, I'd like to see them all cleared, but I hope at least a majority of them can get that out of the way.
I hope the process speeds up by the time we get to those felony records, honestly, because that is an insane amount of people, and their lives shouldn't be, in limbo for too long. I hope. I'm so excited about this portion of the bill. Honestly, it's like one of the realest parts of the bill. It's like, okay, we have been criminalizing this thing for 100 years. Mm-hmm. What effects can we actually change? And I'm excited to see how this goes through, especially the Clean Slate Act last year. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure how many people in cannabis this will affect, because most of them will get through the automatic and the BCA's review board. But this is all non-felony, non-violent crimes in Minnesota will be up for automatic expungement. Mm-hmm. So this bill goes beyond cannabis, but it's a part of this. And I don't know, I think Minnesota is doing a good job in actually not just building an industry, but doing the restorative justice that we haven't seen from so many states. So many states are still locking people up. But we're also doing a dual path of, like you said, we're criminalizing people more, mm-hmm. but we're also letting them free. So it's a strange dual path, but I'm excited to see this started.
I mean, this Clean Slate Act sounds like something everybody should know about. That's a big deal, because even when people have misdemeanors and petty misdemeanors, they lose opportunities for that, like housing, jobs, etc. So that's a big deal.
Yeah. And I mean, we're not a political podcast necessarily. The views expressed are our own, not of the Minnesota Cannabis College. Yeah. But talk about the power of a DFL trifecta. Oh. I mean, I feel like I'm still learning about things that happen that it's like, wow, that's a great legislative change. That's incredible. Obviously, there's still some room for growth. There always will be, especially around cannabis. But, I mean, seeing some of those things that we really hoped for starting to fall into place, even if slowly. I mean, they said expungements are slated to begin by mid-2024, and they expect all those clean slate expungements to meet that 2025 deadline. So that's within the next 2 years here. Yeah. We're going to have potentially more than 250,000 records expunged, all because of this one bill.
That's 250,000 people. Yeah. I mean, there's only 2 cities in Minnesota that have populations that have bigger numbers than that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
More than Bloomington, Rochester, Duluth. I mean, that's a lot of people. St. Cloud.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, though, they get all those rights back, too. We're getting 250,000 Minnesotans who are restoring their, civil rights like that.
And this impacts their families. This impacts their kids, the people that depend on them.
For sure.
To provide for them.
Yeah, people might look and say, all right, they added a notice. That's not huge news. Why are you guys talking about this? It's because expungement is one of the things that we really fought for in the bill. And yeah, it's incremental steps forward. But as cannabis activists, I feel like we're so used to one step forward, 17 steps back. It's cool to see step by step by step, things getting at least closer to our vision of what legalization could look like.
I mean, there's countless people who've lost job and housing opportunities. That's your quality of life. Mm-hmm. If you can't work or have a place to stay, your life is hell. Yeah. So, I mean, as much as I love the industry, the market, the most important part was the end criminalization and to restore people who were victims of the criminalization, Mm-hmm. So for me, this is the best part, even though I love the industry.
Yeah.
And
good shit, as they say.
It's really good shit.
Yeah. Well, how about we leave it there? Yeah. We've got a pretty sweet interview coming up with Stefen Cornell, talking about some upcoming classes that we got at Modest in February. People should listen through to that. And then at the end, we're going to be talking about a Grow at Home series we're doing at with CannaJoyMN, the amazing seed bank here in Minneapolis. So definitely stay tuned for that.
Mm-hmm. We should do some crosswords with all the cannabis businesses that have Canna or...
I know. How many ways can you end the word Canna?
CannaJoy, Canna Connect.
Honestly, between Canna and hemp and there's a few other words, we could make a pretty fun crossword.
Mm-hmm. We used to do these prohibitionist bingo things.
coming to a future episode. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Northern Lights Podcast. I'm here by myself. I wanted to tell you about the February 19th event that we have coming up. It's a Living Soil class. It's going to be held at Modest Brewing. You can get your tickets online at the minnesotacannabiscollege.org/soil. And if you've ever learned...
It's alive!
Are you a living soil?
I'm the living soil!
Do you
can
know-
come and learn more about me.
Do you know Stefen Cornell?
Do I know Stefen Cornell? Stefen Cornell is who grows me.
You're grown by Stefen Cornell. If you want to be grown just like Stefen Cornell grows living soil, you can grow living soil yourself. Just be like Tanner and come to the Living Soil class on February 19th.
February 19th, Modest Brewing with Cornell Urban Agriculture. Come learn about living soil.
Hey, don't they have a brand new private event space?
They do. It's pretty cool. And we're back. We're sitting here today with the man behind Cornell Urban Agriculture, Stefen Cornell. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Tanner. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming out today. We've been working together on a couple classes in the past that I'm excited to talk a bit about, but also really excited to premiere an upcoming class that we got coming up in February. So that's what we're going to be digging into today. But before that, I wanted to sort of talk a little bit about your background itself. You've been in the hemp industry for quite a while here in Minnesota. Can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to this industry in the first place and what your years in this industry have been like?
Yeah, it's been a long journey. I never really thought I'd have the opportunity to do what I'm doing right now. So I really, just appreciate all the people who supported us along the way. I've been growing for about 14 years, and that really came out of a need of just supplying my own medicine. You couldn't find anything with, that was grown organically or without synthetic salts. And, I happen to be really sensitive to those. So, if I smoke anything with synthetic salts grown in it, it really, seems to agitate, my lungs. So I started growing myself just out of necessity. And I've been mixing my own soils for, 12 or 13 years now. And over that time, I've just always been obsessed with cannabis. And when I started growing organically, I had tried a couple different methods. And, I've started following this, this really well-known breeder and grower named Subcool, who at the time in the late, 90s, early 2000s, he was actually an editor for High Times magazine for about 20 years. But he's one of the few people really giving away a lot of his knowledge that he'd accumulated over the last 30, 40 years growing for himself. So I started learning from him, and he had a method which he called super soil, and he would basically take all the raw organic dry amendments, like you might have in his mix originally back in the day as blood meal, bone meal, fish bone meal, rock dust, glacial rock dust, a few other things. But you could basically mix this soil up and add some water to it, let it sit for a couple weeks, and then you just need to add water to it, and you could just grow some of the best cannabis plants around.
For sure.
And that really sent me down a path, and the response that I got whenever I shared it with people was really overwhelming. Really positive response, and it just, I don't know, it just kept going and snowballing, and it's never stopped. And about 4 years ago, I was in a corporate finance job, making about $250,000 a year, and just wasn't really satisfied. I didn't really feel like this is the life path for me. And, when the hemp began to be legalized, then, I really thought that I might have an opportunity to do something. So I pretty much just quit my job, cashed in on my 401k and just, went all in. And
Very
so
cool.
I risked it all. And the first couple of years I was just on my own. It's a lot of work doing what we do. And so to do that on your own is pretty tough, but I have a big passion for organics, and, I really feel that this is the path. And I feel like, since we've started with the synthetic nutrients, slowly after World War II, there was this there was this need to take care of a lot of the extra gunpowder, nitrates, and things that were used in the war, and they started applying these towards our farming, and then they started kind of making it difficult for anybody to not use these. And so over time, salts basically build up in the soil, and salts actually kill off a lot of the microbes and a lot of the living bacteria and fungi, that are there. That's why we put a lot of salt preservatives in our food, and that's also why a lot of people have gut problems, because the same microorganisms that are basically digesting our food in our bellies, if you ever heard of like probiotics or kefir
100%.
or something like that, this bacillus bacteria, the lab they call it. You've seen it in kefir. It's one of the key mechanisms that come from worms in their belly, and so worms basically will churn through the soil. They'll eat through a lot of this stuff, and what comes out and what's left is a lot of bacteria and a lot of life, and then these properly digested organic nutrients. And so the problem with cannabis is that it's such a high feeding plant, especially indoors. It's really hard to supplement all that. So people use salts because they can really just an IV that straight line into them.
Absolutely.
And they can really, if they need to pump up the nutrient, you can just keep, jacking it up. But what we're doing with our organics is, over all this time and all this effort and trying different things, basically right now we feel like we're really following the right path, using this hot thermophilic compost. And so basically, just like the Super So, we can take all these raw amendments, we can add all these microorganisms and fungi, create this perfect environment for them to really thrive. And these populations just unfold into the trillions and trillions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There could be a billion in just a drop, of some of this tea that comes out. So we're really populating and feeding all this soil life. And then we're using this hot compost, and then we're using these once that heats up and then breaks down and cools down, we can take that and we can actually feed that to our worms, and we can add a lot more bacteria and diversity from their gut, and they'll actually further break that down. And what that does is it really makes all those nutrients available to the plant, almost like a salt-based nutrient. And so by concentrating all that, we can really, we can make our compost teas and really make a water, that's just full of life. It's full of nutrients, and you can feed it to your plants, and you really don't need to know how to do anything because it's already kind of put together, and you're just letting nature do its thing, and you're just nurturing nature to really kind of increase these populations. And they're basically your workforce taking all these raw scraps, waste, food waste sometimes, and turning it into some of the best things for your plants that you can do. And it regulates all the pH. You don't need a pH meter. You don't need a ppm meter. You don't need any of that stuff. So it really makes it easy. We feel like it's creating a much higher quality product with a more complex terpene profile.
Yeah.
And we're basically, my thought process is creating all this diversity and taking some of the best parts of nature from around the world, putting those into a balanced format, giving it the right ratios, and, applying a really high performance mix, that's all just broken down by nature, and it continues to just break down. And then we can feed that, and you don't really need to monitor anything, have a bloom formula, all these schedules, menus, all this stuff. You can really just kind of add water and add this in here, and grow something really high quality that you're not going to be able to find at most dispensaries.
I love that. You were like one of the first people that I knew here locally that was growing hemp, not just like outdoors in their backyard, but really focusing on that indoor grow facility and saying, and obviously things have changed now, but I think going back to like 2019, 2020 of like, wow, this guy is growing hemp like you would grow marijuana. Like he's growing it not just to try to get fiber or seed or to like get a finished product, but to get something that is super high quality. So it's cool to hear about sort of the science side that goes into really getting that high quality flower product.
Yeah, thanks. It's it's science and nature all together, and it's really a collective effort of many different people like myself that follow this passion, and that's something that that I want to carry on and I want to give to people. So my goal is really to help show people that I really feel this is the way, and I really want to instill that, because I think we can really clean up the earth. We can clean up a lot of this wastewater. We can clean up a lot of things. There's just a lot of things that just don't make sense. They don't go with, they're not sustainable. And so we want to be able to, give an option for people indoors to kind of create something sustainable. And, the one thing that I've always loved about cannabis is that, the more processed it gets, the less effective that it is. We all know it as the entourage effect, but really that starts in the soil. And if you had a big, huge buffet and you had all your friends over there and you got every type of food and dessert and appetizer over there, I mean, that's really going to allow you to pick and choose what you want. And so by creating that diversity in the soil with all the food, we can basically kind of create, as many avenues as possible for that plant to really express its full diversity. And so what we're trying to grow, is not fiber, we're trying to grow resin.
Yeah.
And so it's not about the yield of the flowers. It's not about the weight of the flowers. It's about the content of the terpenes, the diversity in the terpenes, the diversity in the cannabinoids, the strength of the cannabinoids. And, that's very, very important for the next, step of, naturally extracting, which is through rosin or through bubble hash. And so you can't just buy any material, unfortunately, off the market and, take that product and make good solventless. You really have to start at the beginning. And that's what this path has led me down to, because when we first started pressing our hemp rosin, I think we're somewhere in the range of like 14 to 16% yields.
Okay, totally.
On that. And since I've kind of reconfigured all of our high carbon inputs into the soil and increased the diversity and the life out of there, we've increased that to about 25 to 30%.
Nice.
So it's
Okay.
almost been a double.
Yeah.
And when you get to those kind of numbers, then we're really rivaling a lot of the solvent-based products that are on the market. And so another thing besides organics that we're big proponents of is the solventless, because, when you dissolve, resins from the plant into another solvent or a chemical solvent, basically, you are changing the chemical composition of it. And the more that you're altering that, even if you get rid of the solvents, there's always going to be loss when you're processing.
Yeah.
And so that loss just translate from experienced people like maybe you or I, when you take a flower and you smoke that flower and you have a certain effect from that flower or that specific strain or indica or sativa or whatever effect that has or terpenes profile that has, it has a certain flavor. And now if we were to do the minimal processing to it, maybe make bubble hash or just press it into rosin, dab that, and inhale that, that's going to give us a similar effect, but it's actually going to be narrower, and then if you were to, maybe heat that up and decarb it, put it in a cartridge or something like that, that's going to further narrow that spectrum.
Yeah,
of
and get
effects.
further away from that
And
sort
so,
of original source.
What we've learned is basically the more processing, the more heat, the more time that you're applying to these, the narrower the spectrum is going to be, the less effective, it will be in many cases, where you want a full spectrum. Obviously there's other place and time for more of a medical specific ratio of certain cannabinoids or terpenes, but if you're producing all those, then we can really kind of start extracting a lot of those into different into different avenues and more specific ratios for customers.
Yeah, very cool.
How do you communicate all of this to customers who don't have an understanding of cannabinoids and terpenes or the whole cultivation or extraction process?
I mean, I think every time I explain it, I try and concise it down to more words, but I don't know. That to me is just part of the passion. Fortunately, I've got kind of an engineering background and a sales background, so I'm pretty good at taking complex things and putting them into something relatable. But you can really go as far down the rabbit hole as you want. So I mean, you really I try and gauge everybody as I'm talking to them, to kind of see where they're at and what's going on, with their knowledge base. Because, I mean, you can really spend a 20-year rabbit hole down here.
I live in rabbit holes, so I love the way you explain this. I'm just thinking, like, for some of our listeners, this might be way over their head, but it's such valuable information because sourcing matters, The people who are listening are most likely consumers, but most of them are really clueless about the complexities of the production process, the story from seed to them consuming it. I mean, I think you break it down very well, but I'm just wondering, like, how can we aid in the process of educating consumers about why sourcing matters, why organic products matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough concept to get across to people.
Yeah.
And man, I mean, that's a tough question, but I would say, for me personally, obviously we just came up with a fresh cup win at Legacy for our CBD flower and the space ice cream. But, for me, thank you. But, for me, that the most important part of that is really, and to answer your question, is to show people by example.
Show them better
you know what I
than you
mean?
can
It's to
tell them.
show people by example, to show people that we can out yield a lot of the salts. We can out yield the hydroponics. We can, and we can demand way higher pricing, 50%, 100% higher pricing. You know what I mean? Off of that, our hemp flower, a lot of people ask me, when we're going to start going full rec with Cornell. And we're crushing it with the hemp flower. So, we're getting a lot higher value than most marijuana on the market for our hemp flower. And I think that's just attributed to, to those qualities. The number one way is to lead by example, I think, and to just show people. And I think when they try a lot of our products, they really notice it. It doesn't taste like what I call the Pretendica. It looks good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just is dense and looks frosty, and there's just no oiliness to it. There's no real stickiness to it.
Absolutely.
It's very dry. And if you were to press it, it's going to press out dark. It's going to press out low yields. And so, by adding these other components and complexities that we really, I think, don't understand yet, all I know is that, you really just got to trust nature. We got to create, a high fungal, type of environment. High bacterial environment, balance this stuff out. And, if you want to learn more about that, obviously, we've got a cool class.
Yeah, what a great transition. So let's talk a little bit about that. So coming up in February 19th, people will have the opportunity to really dig in deep to the science of soil with you, really hear more about sort of your background, sort of what you put into your soil, but also how people can create a similar type model in their own home grow. Talk us through a little bit about what people can expect to learn at that class.
Well, thanks, Tanner. Yeah, and I appreciate you guys inviting me out to share some of our experience with that. And basically, what we're going to offer for the February 19th class is we're going to actually build a super soil from scratch. And right away, this is going to save you some money, because I know I typically was spending about $500 to $600 a week, on my soil inputs and different bag soils and these craft boutique soils. And the truth of the matter is that you can really build it from scratch and make something even better, than any of those bag soils. So we're going to teach you how to do that. It's going to save you a ton of money. You're going to basically build something from scratch, just like if your grandma was, building, making you some amazing holiday dinner for the family. Obviously, the more, the closer to scratch that you can get, the better. We're going to teach everybody and give everybody our basic mix that we use, that actually won that cup. And we're going to show people how to build that, exactly what to do, what they need to buy, where they can get it. And then we're also going to tell everybody a little bit about some of these other different kind of levels or depths of, of living soil or things like hot compost, things like the vermicomposting or worm composting, so that if people really want to kind of take it to the next level, they can. But at the same time, we will be offering some of these kind of higher level, compost or multi-stage compost type products that are going to be available for people. So, we can build the basic soil, which anybody could just basically water and grow amazing plants like I was talking about. And then we can talk, and then we can help educate people as to how to really kind of take things to the next level, start fine tuning it. But, in my opinion, it's by far the most fun way to grow, because, you're really just too much water, too little water. It's very simple. There's no chemistry set. There's no like special equipment.
Yeah.
Like you literally just need some clean water, maybe a little unsulfured blackstrap molasses, and that's about it.
I love that. That's so cool. So, it's sort of you can sell a man some cup-winning flower they can smoke for a day. Teach a man how to grow cup-winning flower. Smoke for a lifetime. That's a pretty cool deal. That's definitely a class people should come on out to.
Well, it's pretty much my adult life's work. So, We're taking, we're standing on the shoulders of a lot of great people who've really evolved this. And, I think that we're all doing our individual little tests and research and programs, because there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's a million different ways to do it. There's different things you can put in the soil, and there's no right or wrong way. But I think if we can kind of inspire that organic craft culture here in Minnesota, that's what I'm most focused on, is to really help provide a lot of that background, that knowledge, that experience. And we're basically just giving it away so that everybody else can really benefit, and so that we can really, create a strong craft market and create something, that'll probably come back to me and help me, because I'm hoping that a lot of these people are going, I have this resource, near me that's just a waste product that I could maybe incorporate into this, and you really never know where it's going to take us, and by experimenting around and teaching people some of these basics, they can start kind of playing around with what's at their disposal, maybe on their house or their farm or near their house. And then we can start applying this stuff and really saving tons of money on nutrients, growing better products, and having a lot more fun doing it, and really feeling good about it, because we're just, creating something a lot more sustainable that's not going to affect the waters, that's really going to start injecting life. And, in this day and age, the more, what that leads us to is this compost teas, where you're really populating and culturing a lot of these microorganisms. And then once you do that, you can really apply that to water and apply that to huge acres of fields. And, you'd be amazed how much life you can really, generate in there, and overcome a lot of these salts that have depleted a lot of those soils, and, start bringing a lot of that stuff back to life. And we're just going to start seeing, I'm hoping that, this inspiration is really just going to kind of carry over, like it has for me, into foods and into, other things. When you see how powerful it is with your cannabis, you start to realize how powerful it is, with your foods, and you start realizing, what an issue that is and how all this stuff relates. And, that's a big reason why we grow microgreens cover crops on our soil, right, beneath our cannabis, just because it feeds the fungal dominance in the soil, which is what we want, but it also has tons of nutrients in these microgreens. So as we're harvesting them, a lot of those are going to get recomposted back into the soil, what's left. And so the plants basically get to benefit from all those vitamins and minerals to make healthier plants. And then, we get to benefit from all those vitamins and minerals to make healthier people. And, we want to snowball that cycle.
I actually have a funny story about those microgreens I want to tell, but first we're going to take a short break. All right, so I had the opportunity to meet you for the first time at an event that actually Steve hosted with A Shock way back in the day. And one thing that stands out from that event is I remember the time I was on this hick of I really wanted to try cannabis microgreens. And I was like, I got to find someone who's going to help me grow some cannabis microgreens. I don't want to do it at home. It's hemp. It wasn't legal, but I needed someone with a hemp license to help me do this. I was asking people. They all said, that would be disgusting. And you were the first person that I talked to that went, hey, wait a second. What terpenes do you think we could grow that would express early on, that you could get in the flavor of the such a great conversation, and one that has stuck out with me for years. So thanks for going down that rabbit hole with me years ago. But I want to talk a little bit more about living soil today. So people can be using living soil to not just increase their yield, which I think a lot of people focus on, like what that's final weight, but really that final product, improving the quality of it. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so this super soil has really kind of been the, I don't know, when I started in the hemp business, we were getting lower yields, with all of our solventless, and I really had to rethink kind of the inputs into our soil to really get higher production in those numbers. So I mean, for me, the soil's really where it starts. If you want to be pressing really high quality rosin, if you want to be getting really high yields with your rosin or your bubble hash, pretty much if you look at any really high end bubble hash company outside of the States that have made a name for themselves, the number one thing they will ever tell you is that they're just grateful to source a lot of this best material. And a lot of them are sourcing it from organic growers like myself, who are using high carbon inputs, a lot of different like forests and woods and, cardboard and, different carbon rich materials, the brown materials they call it in compost. So those carbon rich materials are really going to help, increase that. And when you increase that life, everything is just going to start snowballing, and that's going to just increase the overall health of the plant. It's going to increase its disease suppression, and that's going to allow you to not have to use any pesticides, any fungicides, anything like that. So you really don't need any of that stuff. So the soil is really where you're going to get all that quality from. And in my experience, if you're not sending it to get blasted with a bunch of butane or, something like that. I mean, this is the way that you want to go, so especially if you want to have clean medicine that you can't really buy at a dispensary or find anywhere, that's because it's more expensive to produce just because of the yield. So what we're doing is we're really trying to inspire others, and, work together as a community to, really increase the competitiveness and really drive that up, because the only way for us to really overcome a lot of these unsustainable gardening practices is to outcompete, is to really create a higher quality product, a higher quality year, a higher yield, and make it really easy for everyone. And I think that if we can, make that easy for everybody to do at home and, show people how, they could maybe start a cannabis business and grow organically and show people how to do that, I think, that's where we're really going to jump up in Minnesota, and really, make a place for ourselves, in the cannabis market nationwide. And, I think, it's the perfect spot to do that.
Yeah, it all starts at home. So speaking of which, we've got Marcus here. Now, Marcus, one of the New Year's resolutions that I set for you is that you're going to start growing at home. Yeah. We collaboratively set this, so it's not like I'm forcing this on him, but you're going to start growing at home, Marcus. And we really wanted Marcus to be here to sort of have the new grower's perspective. And if you were to explain living soil to someone who has never had growing cannabis plants that made it to the end in their home, how would you sort of break down the concept of what is living soil and how is it different than just that bag that you might buy at Home Depot?
Great question. So the difference between living soil and what you might buy at a bag store is going to be the amount of nutrient or fertilizer that's in there, the amount of life that's in there and diversity that's in there, and the quality that it's going to produce at the end. So any commercially available product, I actually thought about this because we've been expanding our worm farm, and I was thinking about selling the castings, and I put such expensive materials into these worm castings that it's really tough to even sell them and come close to where you're at with a lot of these other things, or with a lot of these kind of more common products out there. So when you're doing something at home or you're making it from scratch, you can really save money that way, and then you can really opt to really increase a lot of the quality of inputs that you're putting in there. And then basically the other thing's always kind of that freshness, and so you don't know how long a bag's been sitting there. You don't know how well it's been mixed at high volumes. So when you're taking your fresh materials right from the beginning and you're adding them all together and you're kind of letting some of those, and injecting a little bit of these microbes and fungi and just letting them just feed. It's like if we just had endless resources and there's tons of resources everywhere, it's like we're just going to keep populating and growing, and thriving, right? And so that's what we're doing. And we're just taking a lot of these raw organic materials and putting them in the right ratio and making it a lot richer. And the problem with a lot of bagged materials is it's really tough to get all the nutrients in there. And so, you end up buying your soil that's expensive, and then you got to buy more nutrients. And then it's like, oh, you got to buy this and you got to buy that. And now there's a huge grid of a menu, following every week. And you got to do 5 mils of this and 1 cup of this and a quarter cup of that. And it gets really confusing. And I think a lot of people, it gets overwhelming for new growers.
Yeah, it sounds like
and it's, and you don't need to understand all these different rhizospheres and what's going on, you know what I mean, to be good at this. Like, all you need to do is have high quality inputs, have a little bit of instruction on how to do it. And there's been hundreds and thousands of people who have taken a lot of this information. And, for instance, I was talking about, the original person who I learned this from, Subcool, he, had a lot of this information, and he inspired a lot of people with this, just giving this out. And he ended up losing the cannabis cup to one of his disciples that was learning all this stuff. And he was a high school teacher in California. He ended up beating everybody in the cannabis cup with one of Subcool's strains. And, their little, manipulation of the super soil, or just changing a few, different inputs, or maybe, having, certain different inputs that are local to them, that they can start incorporating into these soils and really kind of making it their own. And it's fun to have a tried and tested true mix that, you can just mix this stuff all together. And as long as you're adding water in there, like, that's all you need to do to just grow some amazing plants. You don't need to buy a million different things. A lot of the nutrient companies don't want you to know this, but, you can really, cheaply buy all this stuff, mix it all together, and have something that's higher quality that they could ever, afford to sell you. You know what I mean? And that's the real question. A lot of these companies are good, but, they got to make profit in order to make sense of a lot of that stuff. And, just like making food at home, if you go bought some lettuce and, chop this stuff up yourself, it's not going to cost very much money, but it's going to take a little bit of work. It does take work to make super soil, but I'll tell you, I make a lot more super soil for other people than I even make for myself, and I make it all myself every week, and it's probably the lowest profit thing that I do all week, but it's my favorite thing to do, and it makes me feel good. And when you're mixing this soil, you can almost smell a lot of these microbes starting to populate, and it's like when you walk into like this rich, fertile forest, and you just get these smells, or maybe some trees are knocked down, and there's decomposition happening, and you can really smell all this fresh forest, and that's actually the thriving microbe populations, and it's like that's what you're smelling. So when you're mixing this soil, and you really feel grounded towards nature, and you really feel like it's the right path, and it's a really rewarding thing. It really grounds you to the complexities of life, and how that stuff relates. And for me, when you're doing it and you experience that, and then you see the results of it, I mean, there's nothing else but to think that it's just the right path, for to grow.
Sounds like the only path. Years ago, I attempted to do a closet harvest, and there's a lot of fatalities and diseases. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just, but it was a beautiful experience to see this life in my bedroom. And so I haven't done it since then because, my wife then was afraid because it was illegal. But now that we have this opportunity to do it freely, I'm excited to learn how to do it the right way. Because I am a cannabis snob, and I'm a foodie, so I like nice things. I like the best quality, So it sounds like living soil is the way to go. So I'm very excited to learn from the class that you're, blessing us with.
So,
Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate that.
So Marcus, I'm excited. We're actually doing a giveaway, and we drew the name, and you won. You're going to be coming to that class February 19th at Modest Brewing. It's
Jiminy Crickets.
I know. It's going to be such a great time. We're really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great class. It's one of those that I'm really excited to be able to sit back and just take in all of the knowledge and really learn. So thank you again so much.
Goosebumps and I'm sweating. I'm so excited. I just can't hide it.
Well, so if people want to learn a little bit more about how to grow using that living soil method at home, they'll have to come out to that class, learn a little bit more about it, and really see on what are those inputs that you need to be able to get some high quality outputs all at your own home.
Yeah, wow. I mean, what a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and and one thing that's really helpful, I think, for just having this class, and I appreciate you, offering this, to everybody, but there's a lot of what they call bro science, or there's a lot of misinformation, about growing. And, it seems like everybody who's grown twice in their life will give you an opinion on what, is said to be done. And so, if I could give one bit of advice to everybody, it's just, follow people who are experts in the field, you know what I mean, and learn from their mistakes, because, this stuff isn't rocket science, but, it's really about experience. And if you have, these basic tools, and the cool thing about the soil mix that we're going to do is it's really a widely accepted, mix that's really been kind of debated by a lot of different experts in the field. We feel like this is kind of the best kind of basic mix, and then you can really kind of enhance that how you want it. You can put your own personal touch on it, with different types of inputs, and I'll kind of go through that stuff, and how some of these different nutrients actually affect the flavor. And so that's what's really been interesting to me is that, you know, you can use, you know, chicken manure and that creates a certain flavor, or you can use guanos and that changes the flavor, and where you source the guanos changes the flavor based on what they're eating and where that is in the world. And so all these different, and the timing of it, you know what I mean? It's, you know, if you're using a lot of kelp laid in flour, you know, some of that ocean, or a lot of shrimp and a lot of crustacean meat late in flour, and it's not as broken down. Basically, you can get, you know, some of those more kind of oceany smells in there. You know, if you're using more gypsum, you can kind of get more sulfur, you can get more gas, you know, and some of that gas in there. So you can really, you know, you can really have a lot of fun with it, you know, and that to me is really cool how there's so many different ways to do it. And I think that's what kind of leads to a lot of the confusion about it, because you could do it if there isn't a right or wrong way a lot of times. But, you know, this will kind of give everybody a really good foundation for everybody to kind of build from, you know, and from there you can really easily start kind of changing one thing at a time or enhancing one thing, you know, and really kind of progress your own, you know, your own program and start noticing these different things, you know, for yourself. But for me, having done it for a while and starting to play around with a lot of these flavors, you know, the mix that we're kind of creating is going to give more of a kind of a floral, buttery background. It's going to enhance all the terpene production. It's going to increase the health of the plant. It's going to fight all those diseases. It's going to make it so healthy that the bugs aren't going to be able to really want to attack that plant, because it's just too much work. You know what I mean? And just too healthy of leaves. So, I mean, you know, that's the goal, is to have a lot healthier plants. That's going to create a higher quality product that you can make at home. It's going to make it a lot more fun, and it's going to make it a lot simpler so that you're not going to run into these, you know, issues, because, you know, growing is really hard. And when you've spent 4 to 6 months maybe picking out seeds and picking out your method and putting it all together and building a, you know, room and putting all this stuff in there, you know what I mean, to go through all that and then to have, you know, one day and your dehume filter got clogged and now that shuts off and your humidity spikes, and it's like all that work just got molded out overnight or something like that. So, I mean, we're here to really make it a good experience. I want everybody to really, you know, experience the, you know, the joy that I get, you know, from gardening this way, and you know, the satisfaction it gives you to, you know, feel like you're creating a lot of products that, you know, that just aren't available on the market. And that's what really pushed me into this, is there's just a huge gap in the market where there just isn't, you know, these high quality products, you know, and a part of that is the tax laws. I mean, it's set up so that, you know, everybody, whoever can cut the most corners and save the most money is going to survive. And everybody who's doing things the right way, or maybe making stuff from scratch or putting in more labor, you know, you really have to, or I've had to really, you know, get a lot more creative to overcome a lot of those things. And you got to get more efficient, and you just have to battle that in different ways. So, you know, we've been working on those efficiencies, increasing those yields, that turnover, you know, and with the new system that we've kind of developed recently, you know, we've increased our production by about 85%, you know, with only about a 15% increase in power. And so that efficiency is always a big, you know, big thing for me. But what that basically means is that, you know, even if, you know, a salt-based grower is getting higher yields out of it, you know, we can actually still create more product just through our timing, just through our creativity, just through the ingenuity, you know, of the program. So, you know, we're here to kind of teach that, show people how they could maybe, you know, start from scratch and start your garden, and also kind of where, you know, it might lead, and you never know where it's going to take you.
Absolutely. Wow, that's going to be a great class.
Are there any competitors that you respect who, you know, their processes for production
For organic
in the
growing?
Minnesota market? Yeah.
In the Minnesota market, you know, one of, I would say, Northland, you know, Up North Genetics, you know, White Terp, Dreamin' Farms, you know, those guys are really, you know, really crushing it out, you know, and they're really doing things the right way, you know, with rainwater, with, you know, KNF, with permaculture, things that are all going to be sustainable. And that's a big part of it, is we want to, you know, grow great medicine and have great things for our family that are available that we could grow ourselves, and make it cheap and affordable, make it so that, you know, we're actually, bringing life instead of kind of taking away. You know what I mean? And that's what this is all about, is really kind of inspiring people to really, further that life and further that, that type of growing. And those guys are doing it. They're leading by example. So I applaud those guys, and, I hope that everybody, gives them a follow, or, gives them a congrats for grinding it out, because it's a little bit harder, and it's a big step. But, I think, with all those people putting that work in, and, if we can openly kind of share that and help each other out, and kind of create that kind of a community here, I think that there's no end in sight for where it could take us.
Mm-hmm. Well, what would you like the Minnesota cannabis industry to know about you as a person?
I just want people to know that, my main goal isn't profits. It's just instilling, a lot of this education, and, getting that information that other people had available for me, to get where I'm at. I want to be able to pass that on, but I also want to just try and inspire people to, to follow this path and to really, live the lifestyle. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I think that, you just need a little bit of a taste of it, but I think that, I think that we can really inspire a lot of people to follow this method and to really, keep evolving it and keep pushing it. And I really hope that, Marcus is coming back to me in 6 months or a year, mm-hmm. going like, you got to check this out. And that's really one of the most exciting things to me is, you share this with people. And, a lot of times in business, people like, I'll get business people are like, don't tell people that. Trade secrets. Don't show mm-hmm. people for sure. That. You know what I mean? But, it comes back. Like I built my business on really trying to share and trying to give, and trying to, give without expecting anything. And, I found that stuff just shows up at my door. Mm-hmm. And I found that when I share that with people, I might be busy, and it's like, I'm working so hard that, it's tough for me at this stage of the game to really do the research like a new grower, is, and a lot of times, like, that's where you're going to learn the most as an experienced veteran, is actually from, these people that you're teaching, and so, when you can inspire people to really, want to learn this stuff and, and show people the way, I think that, it really brings a community aspect. It really, like I said, it's going to snowball, and it's just going to create more life. It's going to create more inspiration. It's going to create more of all these positive attributes. And, and then I think it all comes back, because a lot of times, people in that situation that I've helped, or, they might know I'm busy, but I try and set time aside, to just talk and work through things, because I really enjoy it and I want to talk to people about cannabis. But, also that, a lot of times, when they're inspired, it's like they're, the second they read something really exciting that's new or groundbreaking or something they haven't seen before, I'm like the first person they want to talk to about it, and tell, and they're like, have you seen this? Check it out. And so that's really exciting to me when, when people are really excited to kind of learn stuff and share that with me, and really kind of close that loop, and really have fun with it. And so I just inspire people to share that information and try and help each other out and try and work this together and start trying to, work your own program and realize that, your little program or your research or your experience, mm-hmm. you know what I mean, can really benefit everybody. And if we're all kind of doing that, there's not really anybody who can stop us.
Yeah, 100%. I think what's cool about Minnesota is we're going to be perhaps the most education-focused cannabis industry in the entire United States. We're not just trying to get businesses that make good products. Yes, we do want that. But we're really trying to help people have that path that if you want to be part of this, either as an employee or entrepreneur, just come learn the method and keep growing with others.
Yeah, and you never know where it's going to take you. Because, mm-hmm. I mean, another big part of the class is and teaching people this stuff. And I get a lot of people that ask me to come work over at Cornell. And, it's, for, unfortunately for us to compete, I mean, we need really passionate people to really outcompete. Because, I mean, I do 30-hour days sometimes, and I'll just take a nap and just keep going. And it's, it really takes, special people that are really passionate about it. Just like if you're in the restaurant industry or anything, it's going to take a lot of passion. And a lot of people want to be growing cannabis. A lot of people want to be profiting off cannabis. So, I mean, you know, that's a big step in just, you know, trying to, you know, increase that awareness, increase people's, you know, ability to produce quality products. And, you know, my goal is to create that. I want that competition. Like, I don't want to eliminate the competition. I actually want to increase the competition, you know, and if people are making other stuff and that's better or whatever, like, you know, good for them.
I remember when low-dose edibles were legalized. Was that 21 or 22?
That was 22.
Yeah,
just
we organized one of the first like THC vendor fairs, and you were one of the people. And I remember emailing you like 2 or 3 in the morning. This guy replied like right away. I said, what's going on? He's the only one. I'm not the only one awoke at this time. But so, what's your best advice for someone who hasn't started their company yet but wants to get into the growing cannabis industry?
I would say the biggest thing is, like I said, to follow experts or follow people that you trust that have walked the path and that are doing it. But it's a tough road, and I would say the biggest thing is to really, you know, follow a lot of other people's example. You know what I mean? And then, you know, try and put your twist on it. But, you know, it's really about the details. You know, it's really about the details. It's really about, you know, just hard work. You know, it's about, you know, putting time in, and, you know, that's a big reason why I have so much confidence, is because, you know, I will happily applaud people to try and outwork, you know what I mean, what I'm doing.
30-hour days.
Well, it's just obsessive, you know what I mean? But
you gotta be obsessed to win in this, right?
It's crazy. Yeah. I feel like something's pushing me, you know, beyond myself. And it's, yeah, I don't know what it is or why I want to do this stuff, but I wake up every morning, I might work all night and come back and be sore and, you know, just be ready to not move. And it's like every single morning I wake up and I'm like foaming at the mouth to try and see like what's different at the,
don't know why?
The garden. Well, I mean, I think, like I said, I mean, I think, you know, it really comes back to just preserving the earth and setting us on a different path, because I just feel like everything's on the wrong path right now. Yeah. You know, just the way laws are set up, the way that, you know, like, for instance, the cannabis laws are set up and the tax laws are set up to really kind of cut corners or to make cheap products or things like that. You know, and I think that, you know, by, you know, starting at this grassroots level and inspiring people about the organics and the qualities of it and how that, you know, actually affects our food and affects our nutrition and affects our health, you know, all that stuff is important. So this is just one small aspect, but I just feel like, you know, at least for me, the cannabis and understand the power of all that organics, you know, it really, you know, pushes into your foods, it pushes into your veggies, it pushes into all these things that, in my opinion, are just going to increase everybody's quality of life. And that's why we have our slogan, Craft for better quality of life, because we feel, you know, these are just things that are all going to contribute towards everybody's well-being, you know, and having a healthier life, having, you know, more, you know, success with what they're getting out of that. You know, and then hopefully that'll lead people to, you know, start utilizing a lot more of these methods and start, you know, putting a worm compost bin in their kitchen, or, you know what I mean, starting a compost bin in their backyard. So, you know, I hope that we can inspire that, and I hope that, you know, we can just create that big culture of, you know, in Minnesota. So, I mean, I hope that's what takes over here, and that's where, you know, a lot of my motivation lies, is just, you know, trying to teach people that stuff and reach as many people as that we can, and try and push that as far as we can.
Being the change you hope to see in the world. That's great.
Modeling the way. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So sort of wrapping up today, I mean, if people want to learn more about your method, they can obviously come to that class February 19th. They can go get tickets. But where can they go to sort of follow Cornell Urban Agriculture?
So you can find us anytime at CornellUrbanAG.com. We're very active on Instagram, too, at Cornell Urban AG or Cornell Urban Agriculture. And, you know, you can reach out anytime. You know, usually, as Marcus said, I'll usually get back to you, you know, personally. Oh, yeah. Sometimes it might not be right away, but, but I always get back to you. And, and that stuff's really important. I love hearing from everybody on it and, connecting with people and really, trying to show people the way is what we're really about. So
I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for coming out today. We really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you at the class.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tanner. I appreciate you.
Hey, Tanner, I don't know if you've noticed, but I just wear the same outfit because it's just easier for me to be cool that way. But what if you didn't want to wear the same outfit every day?
Well, if you wanted to wear some pretty dope apparel, you can go to the Minnesota Cannabis College website. We've got some pretty cool shirts. You can get a shirt with our logo on it. Shayna has been wearing that on the podcast.
Yeah.
People have seen that. You can get classic Minnesota dope shirt. We've got some
I see it now.
highly educated branding. You can go get yours today. And it's pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Quick delivery, but really high quality.
Nice.
This is super comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
So really encourage people to go check it out. mncannabiscollege.org/shop. Get your shirt today.
I like my shirts like I like my tinctures and gummies. It's a good blend.
We're keeping that. We're keeping that.
At least part of it.
And we're back. So to wrap out our episode today, I really wanted to fill you all in on an amazing series that we've got coming up with CannaJoyMN. You guys ready to hear about it?
Oh, yeah.
On the edge
What
of
is
my
it?
seat.
All right. So I like growing cannabis. I don't know if you guys knew that. I know it's pretty surprising. But what's better than growing cannabis by yourself? Growing cannabis with a bunch of friends. Well, yeah, growing a lot of cannabis by yourself. Yeah, but growing with friends, growing not just cannabis, but growing community as well.
Oh, wow.
That's what we're here for. And we've partnered with CannaJoyMN for an amazing series that's starting today, January 15th. So if you're listening to this episode the day it came out, it's starting right now. If you're listening a couple days later,
talking about
it's already started.
The seed bank CannaJoy?
Oh, absolutely. The amazing seed bank out of Minneapolis. They've got some really cool cultivars nationally, some really cool local cuts. It's some neat stuff that they've got there. And we're partnered with them that if people are interested in growing with a community, maybe they've never grown before and they want someone to sort of walk them through it. Maybe they've grown many times before and just like
to
me.
brag.
Yeah, just to brag. Just looking to friends to grow along with,
I'll
anything.
show you mine if you show me yours.
Right?
Well, so that's the best part. So I'll be honest. Bob came to me. Bob at CannaJoyMN, awesome person, came to me with this idea and said, "Hey, we should do a grow along." And I'm like, "Cool, that sounds great." And then he said, "So that means over the summer we get to do like swap meets." And I'm like, "Oh shit."
The harvest get together.
Yeah. So picture this. You're growing along with everyone. You're starting your seed today, January 15th. You're letting it grow. Maybe you're growing the auto flower. We're growing a cut from Humboldt Seed Co. Maybe you're wanting to grow a photosensitive plant. We're doing blueberry cupcake. It's a great one. Whatever you're looking to do, you get to the end, you dry your product, you cure it, you let it sit in that jar until it gets just perfect. Come on down, meet up with all your friends. Maybe try out some cannabis that other people grew, share your own, enjoy the growing of community and of cannabis.
I've got a venue that would host that
That sounds like a great
every
time.
month. And it could fit like 500-600 people.
Boom.
And how
a lot of
often are they
growers.
meeting?
So that's the best part. Maybe you're someone who's here locally in the Twin Cities. So once a month, you'll be able to meet up at CannaJoy. Actually, they're going to be having a sort of like a pop-up event. You'll be able to go there. You'll be able to chat with some of the people, learn about the deals they got going on, but just connect with the community. But if you're outside of the cities and you're thinking, hey, I still want to grow along with you guys, we'll also have online Zoom meetings where people can pop in, see our plants, but also ask questions about their own as well.
Very accessible.
Yeah.
Very
Show me yours
accessible.
and I'll show you mine.
Yeah. Well, and guys, I'm so proud of the fact that we can grow cannabis here in Minnesota, that not only are we going to be growing it, we're not just keeping it inside of our tent though. We're going to be live streaming the entire process from seed going into the soil all the way to us chopping and perhaps even harvesting as we get through that.
Wow.
You'll be able to see it grow, see it go from two little seedling, little catalums to larger leaves to some more larger leaves, and it's like watching paint dry. It's just so exciting. You won't be able to turn it off.
Live on YouTube, watching
Live
paint dry.
on
I mean, legal home grow is the saving grace to us having to wait like a year and a half to be able to access flower in shops.
I feel like it gives people a lot of time to get familiar with their own growing, what they like to smoke from smoking their friends' stuff, and like you said, building a lot of great community through these events.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy thinking about so I just chopped the other week and it's wet, so it's take it with a grain of salt. But 2 pounds of material coming from a tent, it's not too bad. And I want to walk people through that. I want you to be able to get that. Come to the summer and have enough product to enjoy.
You guys hear 2 pounds, so wait till you see 2 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's all yours.
Yeah. Imagine having so much cannabis, it can't fit in 1 gallon Ziploc bag. You need multiple. That's your reality. Just grow along with us. Come on down. So if you're hearing this and you're like, wow, I want to sign up for that, I definitely want to do that. You can register for it on our website if you go to mncannabiscollege.org/shop or mncannabiscollege.org/grow together. You can register. And the best part is, guys, the registration, totally free. It's a pay what you can kind of program. The money that we get helps us to put on our mission, helps us to live stream. I mean, equipment costs money. So we're asking people, if you're looking to register, to donate $10. That's it. Grow along with us. Come on into the shop. Check out our live streams. Check out the Zoom. And just grow in our own community.
Mm-hmm. I love how accessible that we're making this education.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
It's free. It's online. I think it's a great experience too. Like we were talking earlier, like you said, cannabis is a great way to introduce people to their love of plants.
Gateway to gardening.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's it's a great first step because it is a plant that takes a lot of your time, but then you get something out of it. And that experience for a lot of people is so just enlightening.
Yeah.
I mean, it deepens the relationship with cannabis. I mean, I can't wait to get started and to really develop my skills over the years. I mean, I've been buying it from other people for years, but to be able to from garden to table to ashtray, I mean, I can't wait.
Well, we got something really cool going on here. So CannaJoy put together this program. If you go to our website and register, again, it's totally free. You can chip in some money, help us to put our mission on you. We appreciate it for sure. But we will then email you a code that gives you 5% off your purchase at CannaJoy, either in person or online. And 5% of your total purchase is donated back to the Minnesota Cannabis College. So you're getting your seeds, you're growing yourself, but you're also helping us to grow. And that's something we really appreciate.
Investing in you, and you can invest in the community.
So we can do more events, so we can grow, so we can do more events, so you can grow.
Yeah.
We're better growing together.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we'll put the link if people want to sign up for that in the show notes, but you also can just go check out CannaJoyMN over in Minneapolis. We'll put their address in the show notes as well, so people can check that out.
Chicago.
Yeah, there you go. It's a pretty great place.
That far.
Oh, yeah. It's a fun shop. You can get some coffee. You can check out the local art. It's definitely a fun hang.
That's a cool intersection.
Yeah. Well, we'll be there at least once a month from now until our beautiful harvest swap over the summer.
What a great partnership.
wait.
They have such good energy. Those are good people.
Yeah, Bob and Aaron are great.
Yeah. So check out CannaJoy. Check out the live stream. By now, if you're listening to this, it should be going on our YouTube page. So hopefully nothing went terribly wrong with that. Go check out that live stream. You can see nothing as of right now, but seeds are in soil, unless you're checking this out a couple weeks from now, in which case you're seeing some cool stuff. It's great. Isn't it wonderful? But that's all that we really have for this week. Appreciate you guys joining us.
Always.
It's always a good time.
Right?
Well, we've got some products that were left behind that we have to go enjoy. But in the meantime, people can check us out on YouTube, check us out on Instagram, Reddit, all of that stuff. YouTube.
We'll see
Subscribe,
you today.
like, comment,
15.
share, help the algorithm.
Yeah. Oh, that's the best part. We got a class going on January 15th. So if you're listening to this on the
On your way
podcast,
there?
drive to the wilderness right now. We got to come actually register online first.
Yeah.
Make sure that there's available
Get
tickets.
a ticket.
Yeah.
Then listen to this and then come over.
Yeah. Then come on over.
All
Start a
these
seed
events
with
are
us.
selling out now, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We haven't had a class that hasn't sold out yet. So
It's
this
not.
is,
I mean, that
one
means
people
it's
should
not
sign
going
up
to
for.
stop.
Right.
Yeah.
Act fast while the
Gross.
tickets last.
Awesome. Well, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. Hit the bell. I don't know.
Yeah, go to the website, call Tanner.
Yeah, call. We'll put in my personal phone number again. Again, that's all right. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your week.
You can call him on a cell phone.
That needs to stay.
All right, we'll keep it.
Late night Winland. No. No, not late at night. No.
Oh gosh.
That's gonna be the audio. That's gonna be our outro. Forget our regular theme. We need that.
Late night when you need.
Northern Lights is a Minnesota Cannabis College production. This episode was produced by me, Tanner Barris, and by my co-hosts Marcus Harkis and John Barty. Production assistance from Shayna Payton and Steve Eigenman. Video and audio recording at the Dabbler Depot studio by Jordan Whitworth. Thanks to Stefen Cornell for coming on, sharing his expertise, and helping to make our February 19th class possible. Today's episode was presented by North Star Law Group, your trusted partner in Minnesota's burgeoning legal cannabis industry. The information provided in this podcast does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice, but is instead for general information purposes only. No listener should act solely on the basis of information provided without first seeking advice from their own legal counsel. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Minnesota Cannabis College. Please listen responsibly. Our recent governor has appointed Jesse Ventura as the new director of the Office of Cannabis Management. Did you hear what he put out in his first statement?
Big nipple rings.
Live from Dabbler Depot, it's Northern Lights. All right, we're stopping. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you.